All right, welcome back, and now we've been joined by our second guest. His name is Umoh Edet, and together we shall be taking a look at a very interesting conversation for the day. Today is the International Day for Domestic Workers, and we want to talk about that because we know that in Nigeria, domestic workers go through a lot, not just here in Nigeria, but in the world. So let's talk about that and see what Umoh Edet has for us today. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much, Linda, and it's nice to be here. Good morning to you too.
So today is the International Day for Domestic Workers. So when we talk about International Day for Domestic Workers, what is aimed or are we hoping to achieve from this day, from the commemoration of this day?
So first thing is that the International Domestic Workers Day, the journey to this celebration started in 2011, where the United Nations, the International Labour Organization, recognized that the domestic workers have played a vital role to the global economy, the global labor force, and further there was a need for member states such as Nigeria and many other countries to ratify the C-189 that provides specific legal protections for them. It's more of like a transition from the informal sector to a formal sector, recognizing domestic work as real work. And so we have a situation, the characteristics, such traits here in Nigeria and other African countries where domestic workers work for long hours. They do not even have written contract. They are not opportune to have social protections, and they work in, day out. Sadly, as a country, as a nation, we're not even celebrating this day because we are yet to ratify this particular convention. And currently, there are only 5 African countries that have ratified that particular convention, recognizing domestic workers as workers in the country. So the essence of the C-189 convention is recognizing their work, is having to make sure that they're not undervalued, they're not underpaid, that they have access to this social protection, just like I've mentioned. So for instances, you've seen that almost every day, every week, every month, every year, there are certain levels of news we've received on the social media. And we are saying that there should be enough of regularization of this sector, and there should be some sort of level of protections to them. And recently, according to Due Job Foundation, we have 4 million Nigerians who are domestic workers. So that's a large number. So there's a need to have a formal recognition of domestic workers as workers in Nigeria. So I think that's the reason why the United Nations is calling on member states and countries to ratify the C-189 convention so that we here in Nigeria could have some level of discussions with domestic workers. Sincerely, it's not supposed to be me that should be for the interview. We should have domestic workers coming here to tell you this is what they expect from government. But sadly, not even NLC or any news media up to this moment has released a statement on domestic workers. Okay,
now I'm going to take it up from where you landed now, expressing your displeasure at the fact that not even the NLC or any news media station has spoken about the International Day for Domestic Workers. That's one. I think in that regard, it's a whole lot has to do with awareness about the day, because for some of our viewers and some Nigerians right now, they're just getting to know that, okay, there's even a day set aside to celebrate domestic workers. Probably some domestic workers are even watching the program now, and they don't even know the job they are doing right now is domesticated. Now, Nigerians want to know, who is a domestic worker? And in light of recognizing domestic workers as real workers, what exactly has your foundation done in terms of getting the government to ratify this United Nations Act?
Okay, thank you very much. So first thing is understanding who a domestic worker is, or what a domestic work is. So the thing is that it is a work performed, or they are engaged for a domestic work which is within an employment relationship. And so domestic work is those work that is performed in a household or in a household generally. So it could be a single household or households. And so they are always employed either by the employer himself or herself or an employer operator. So you usually have a third party that intervenes. And so what is the nature of the work they do? They clean the houses, they take care of the children, those are nannies. They also take care of the elderly ones, they cook. gardeners are domestic workers, cookers are domestic workers, even the drivers,
the security guards.
So the major distinction here between a domestic worker and other cleaners is that the work must be performed in a household. And so if someone is performing these duties and is in a private establishment, they're not categorized as domestic workers.
That's exactly the reason why I said you should you may want to talk about who is a domestic worker, because someone who is a janitor at a private establishment now may be watching and say, oh, I'm a domestic worker also. So
I think that's the line, that's the distinction to know that domestic workers, I mean, for you to be recognized, what the ILO Convention, the adequate definition given to them is that you must perform this duty in a household. And so what we at Center of Advocacy for Domestic Workers, what have we done recently is that we recently launched a petition under the change.org where we are calling up on Nigerians and people around the world to sign the petition. We are using that avenue as a way to get able to have a sort of level of public support, so that when we are trying to reach out to relevant stakeholders, maybe at the National Assembly or at the subnational level, we could say that a total number of persons have been able to say they've been able to voice out through this petition, of which we recently launched it. And also these days quite important for us, and we're also trying to do a sort of a level of awareness where we're going to partnerships with students bodies such as the Law Student Association of Nigeria, their rights department, where we want to have a nationwide awareness, so as to also call on government stakeholders involved to see a need for them to ratify the ILO Convention. So these are works in progress. I mean, the center just recently got involved in this particular work. We felt that there was a gap in the labor law, and so there's a need to carry out some of these things. I mean, it's our own way of supporting domestic workers who are not recognized. So these are some of the works we have already, and larger, like I've mentioned, the petition on change.org is what we have started. And today I'm also looking at situations where we're going to provide legal representation free for them, for those ones who either ways their rights have been abused. So we have a legal team headed by Itaba who is working on a system or sort of structure that provides legal representation. And so the center headed by Mr. Uche, we already put this in plan, and so the first day was to have some level of awareness, like we're doing privilege to have with KAFTAN TV. Second is also moving to reach out to stakeholders. We're going to do it in form of lobbying. We have to convince the stakeholders at the National Assembly. This is the reason why it is important. The Lagos state government wanted doing that under the leadership of Governor Ambode, but it didn't see the light. I think that was in 2018 before Sandra came in. So if not, because Lagos state is always leading the face when it comes to matters such as this. So I think if Lagos had taken that up, I think everyone would have noticed it. So I think just after the National Assembly, we would also try to see how we can reach out to Lagos state government and also reach out to certain relevant stakeholders that are involved. So this is our own way of making that this is ratified in our country, and this is also what we have been able to do at our own level as a center for domestic workers.
All right. Aside the fact that you are in this NGO, we will not also ignore the fact that you are also a legal practitioner.
Yes, I am.
So you also made mention of the fact that lots of domestic workers in Nigeria go through a lot, and ILO Convention 189 is aiming for decent work for domestic workers. So my first question is going to be, when you say decent work, what does that mean? Because we all know that domestic workers, they mostly do cleaning and taking care of children. Is there some kind of indecent work that comes with it that people don't know about? And then in situations where domestic workers are being molested and all of that, especially those that were employed directly by the bosses, we see situations where people go to their villages and pick up somebody's child, take them back to wherever it is that they stay just to do work for them. In a situation whereby children like this or people like this are molested, what can be done about it?
Okay, thank you.
Legally.
So first, legally is that already they are not recognized, so they have no access to social protection. So unlike where you have in the formal sector, you have the terms of employment given to you, and so you know that if this is not followed, you could seek redress. They do not even have that, because most of their contracts are orally made. And so the only leverage they have is to enforce their fundamental rights be it at the state or federal high court. That is the only legal. And we're saying no, that they should have more than this. They should have social protections, security for them. They should have access to paternity care, maternity care. They should have opportunity to work for 40 hours a week, which is the standard, which is 40 hours a week. That's 8 hours a day. And they should be entitled to weekdays rest or 24 hours rest. Some of them work Monday to Sunday.
Those that live in, I don't think having that opportunity of 40 hours a week is going to be possible, because you live in. Because most times you get them, they are called up at the middle of the night to do something,
which is not proper.
Okay.
The 118 convention, the C189 provides some measures that states could look at in view of their environment. Normally, the 189 is even saying that domestic workers at most should not even live in the place of their employer, because they are subject to levels of abuses. These abuses are what makes that work indecent. So making decent work a reality for domestic workers is formalizing and ratifying the convention that allows them to have access to adequate social protections. Because you have such abuses such as sexual, which is common, and it's important to state that it's mostly women that are in this sector. And so they do not voice out, because the fear is that they may lose their job. And most of them are being paid 10,000 naira in a month. And 10,000 naira in a month is not even, you can't even make use of it for anything currently within the economic realities. And they were saying that if you're going to ratify this process, you're going to be giving them an opportunity to earn within the minimum wage. Because they earn 10, they earn 5. And so the difference here is that in the formal sector, before I even come into a contract, before I even start my work, we already have an agreement which is in written contract. How much you're going to pay me, this is going to happen, this is what will happen in case I do not comply. But this is not even common for domestic workers. I was saying that this shouldn't continue. It's an unacceptable behavior that has continued for a while in our country, and we have a lot of people who have exploited most of them. So you even have the ones who go to the villages and pick them up, who sometimes even collect, who tell them, okay, this is how much was agreed to be paid, and do not even pay them that same amount. And so these are sort of persons, these are sort of restrictions we are calling for when we have the sector formalized, when we have the ILO convention ratified. So they will have more access to social benefits. They will have, or there'll be opportunity to be paid within the minimum wage. The minimum wage would also apply to them, and they will be abused or their right to be violated at their workplace. So this is what the ILO CA189 is all about, and we're just calling on the relevant stakeholders who may be listening to see a need to reason and commit this to reason, and see a need to play a vital role in making this particular C189 ratified in our country and other parts of Africa.
Okay, before we round up quickly, in 60 seconds, I want to take you back to where you started, where you said that in Nigeria currently there are about 4 million domestic workers. I want to quickly know how you arrived at that number.
Okay, that was reported by Dewdrop Foundation. Okay, it was even I saw it. There was a lady, good nurse. She wrote an article for Global Citizens on May 1st, and so she took the data from Dewdrop Foundation. Okay, the last time we even had a database for domestic workers was 2007. Okay, which it was 157 as at that time. And so I think Dewdrop Foundation will be the right set of people to ask how they reached there, but that has been a figure that has been recognized, because the Global Citizen platform, that article was sponsored by International Labour Organization. So for them to have sponsored it means that they have endorsed, and they have given reason to the evaluation steps that have been taken to get that number. So Dewdrop Foundation is credited for this data that I've given to you today.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. It's been amazing talking to you. I wish we could continue this conversation, but that's the time we have today for the press. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
And our beautiful viewers, I know that you've been hearing him say ILC OC 189, and that should mean International Labour Organization Convention 189. And with that, we'll come to the end of our program today. And please stay tuned to KAFTAN Television. We have more amazing programs coming your way. I'll see you later today. My name is Sandra Ago.
And I am Francis Adeniyi. You do have a beautiful weekend ahead.